All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm getting ready to address a couple of things going on in the last couple of days, and I just wanted to have an opportunity to talk. I just want to have the opportunity to talk, and so I just hope everybody's okay. I hope everybody is holding up in this craziness that is 2020, child. 2020 been a little bit too much for Keena Day. But I'm here today to address some things and talk about some things and teach a little bit of history. And, try to get us to a point of understanding where we at and where we need to go. So my heart goes out to anybody who is from Minneapolis. Last night was really, really tough to watch. I was up pretty much all night watching it on Twitter and on Snap because, of course, it was not online. It wasn't on, like, national television, of course. But I watched it all night on Twitter, and, y'all, it was a little rough. It was a little rough to watch that stuff. We have had a really, really tough... Y'all, this has been some tough motherfucking times. I ain't even gonna lie to you right now. Because let's really put this stuff into perspective, okay? We started February in regular life, right? And then we ended up by the end of March in the house due to a pandemic. And during this pandemic, we have seen family members or yourselves lose jobs. We have had family members sick. We have had friends our age sick. We have had people to die and we could not attend their funerals. We have had people, seeing education look a little sketchy, where everybody's trying to give homeschooling to their children. I mean, we have gone through all of that. And we talking about families where the mama may not have finished high school. We might have people who, haven't finished college haven't finished school themselves trying to educate their children. Okay, like that's where we at with this. You feel what I'm saying? And that is all emotional. And to add to the emotional toil of COVID, now we want to sit up here and deal with police brutality and vigilante justice by white people. That is where we find ourselves at the end of May 2020. And if you're not mentally drained right now, especially after last night, I'm mentally drained. I don't know how anybody is not. Keena is so tired right now. And I'm also getting tired of people walking up in their judgment of these places that's experiencing riots at this time. I don't know how many times we got to quote Martin Luther King and remind y'all that a culture and a people that's unheard will riot, and that's going to be the response that they have. I don't know how many more times Ella Baker has to be quoted to remind you that as long as black sons and by black mothers are not given the same, respect and honor that white women's sons are given, we got to continue to press. I don't know how many times we got to keep putting these quotes out. I really don't. But what I can't deal with is people having so much judgment on how these people in Minneapolis are dealing with this. And I don't know how much you know about Minneapolis, but I've spent a lot of time in Minneapolis because I was consulting there over a couple years. And the last 2 times that I went to Minneapolis, there were police brutality protests going on in the city. Both times I went recently, and the last 2 times I went. And the last time I went was October 2018, and it was a terrible, terrible protest going on in Minneapolis. I need y'all to understand, Minneapolis deals with a lot of death at the hands of police in that city. That happens a lot. And I don't know how much you know about that, but those people go to the streets take to the precincts. Like, this is a regular lifestyle for them. Every so often, every couple years or so, they have to go to the streets to protest, to stop treating them like their lives aren't worth anything. Minneapolis has to continuously fight that there. And I remember this particular time that I went down there during this protest. I was pissed with my company because I'm like, y'all don't know that the people are protesting in the streets right now? Why would we go there and spend our money there and support these people? You get there and you find out, you know what I'm saying, that there are so many organizations on the ground in Minneapolis. So many organizations on the ground trying to do this work and trying to mobilize the people and get there. But they're getting tired too, because they constantly have to go and say, why do you allow your police force to continue to kill us? They are constantly asking this question in Minneapolis. So when did y'all expect them to erupt? I just don't understand why that shouldn't have been expected, why it hadn't happened before. I just don't understand it. Because, I mean, since 2013, they've had about 8 high-profile cases. And none of the police officers have seen time. Like, that has not... So, a riot is probably the next step to letting people know that we motherfucking tired of this. And that I don't want my son to be the next one. Like, at some point, you know, that was going to be the response. I need to remind y'all, too, that Minneapolis is a very vibrant African-American community. And I don't know if people know that, but because they're surrounded by so many white people in their spaces, right, that they're about 30% of that city's population or so. And so you have mostly white, you know, people. And 2 years ago, in 2017, that's when they got their police officer that's a person of color. But for the most part, it's a Democratic state, but they're mostly white people up until 2018 that's taking these positions and stuff. So a lot of times they don't feel heard. You know how that go. But at the end of the day, this is a very vibrant, very tight Black, you know, community. They have Black businesses. They have thriving Black businesses in that community. 2 places that I used to go to all the time was Sammy's Eatery. And you could see in that eatery that when someone who was down on their luck came into that eatery, they would put them to work and give them a couple extra dollars so that they can eat that night. I mean, that's what that Black community did. And that black organization, Sammy's Eatery, was across the street from a Jimmy John's and across the street from a Subway. And so here he has all this competition across the street from him that, you know, he don't really probably have that extra money to sit and, you know, give out to people who are needing money. But because that was a Black person in that community, they made sure they supported their community. And if they needed to give people jobs, if they needed to give people extra money and let them clean up around the, you know, the eatery so that they can make a few extra dollars, they made that happen in that place. And that's what Black community, that's what Black businesses do for our communities. And so we just got to start remembering these types of things, y'all. We have to, you know, remember that even though we don't travel as much as we need to all of these different places, we have cousins and people that look like us and act like us in all of these other cities that we don't know anything about. And Minneapolis is one of those places. And I hope that you will spend a little bit of time in light of this to really learn about that, especially if you get an opportunity to support a Black business, whether that's us donating to them, especially if, you know, they ended up having their stores burned or something. Just really, really start looking into what Minneapolis is like, because it is a very vibrant Black community. But I say this to say that now this organization, Not on Our Watch is what that stands for, was actually founded because of the killing of Philando Castile. I remember when, and that was in Minneapolis, as most of y'all know, and Philando Castile just rocked my soul, because there were so many narratives going on at that time. You know what I'm saying? We had, first of all, Philando Castile coming down your timeline, all right? Shirt wet, People hollering in the back. You don't know what you looking at in that timeline. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that feeling? We saw that. And then you see, you know, the next thing happening where Diamond is being placed into the police car with her daughter trying to empathize with her and say, it's okay, mommy, it's okay, in the back of a police car, handcuffed. If that didn't rock your world, like, look at this young girl has just seen someone lose their life, probably unjustly, and has to now try to take care of her mother. Like, that is what racism in this country is doing to our children. And this is what they're doing to our families. I couldn't, it didn't sit with me at all. And I spoke out and I did a video much like this one. And I asked a lot of my associates and friends and people I went to college with, y'all, let's just come together and let's put us an organization together. I don't know what we're going to call it. I said, we're going to call it now, but I don't know what it stands for. And we came together and we put some words behind that. And we now work to connect African Americans to their greater communities. So what I mean by that is we try to connect people to organizations that's doing work in their communities. We try to educate people. We try to empower people and make sure that you understand economics is the way to go, okay? They say cash rules everything around me, but we need to understand our access to credit, baby. That's what we need to understand at this time. We work to try to educate people in that. And we also try to push people to be engaged politically. Those are the three things that we said we were going to do, and those are the things that we continue to do in this time. But another thing that I love about our organization and what it has developed into is the fact that we recognize that Black people are not a monolith, that we are not the same, and that because we come from different places, we all have different, you know, experiences. Even our cities have different customs. You know what I mean? Memphis calls what they do juking, and what Detroit calls what we do jitting. I mean, but they basically look like almost the same damn dance. You know what I mean? But how many people actually know that? We don't know. You know what I mean? Unless you've been in both places. We're not monolithic at all. And so because we have different experiences, we have to be understanding of that. You know what I mean? We have different political affiliations, and it's a reason for that. You know what I'm saying? A historical reason for that I'm not going to get into. But it's reasons that we have those differences. But one thing we're going to have to drill to understand is that there are common things that we as a people need as a culture. We need certain things that speaks to all Black people, regardless of socioeconomic, regardless of where you're from, regardless of how much education you've attained. All of that stuff kind of doesn't matter. We need to drill down to the things that we need as a community. And so what I would like to propose to you all, in light of what's happening in Minneapolis, in light of the fact that we got to fight for Brother George Floyd, in light of the fact that we got to fight for our brother Ahmaud Arbery, in light of the fact that we have to fight for the sister Breonna Taylor that's going down in Louisiana, in Louisville. In light of the fact that a woman was punched by the police in Michigan, and that was posted yesterday. Y'all, this is getting ready to take a toll on us, that we got to watch our mental health. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some things that we need to do in mental health. But then we need to use this as a time of pivot so that we can get the plans intact, so that we as a people can come together and start actually trying to fight towards changing some of these motherfucking laws. Because I'm going to tell y'all this, until we get an agenda and until we repeal some of the laws that have disenfranchised us, we are going to repeat every single thing that our ancestors have gone through. And our kids are going to continue to repeat that. I don't want my child to repeat anything that's going on in this country right now. I don't know about you, but that's basically how I feel about this situation. I don't want my children to have to go through this type of stuff. I don't want them to worry about their children going outside and if they're going to get home just because they went out that night and was driving. I just don't even want my children to have to worry about that. And I have a son that is special, that has special needs. I really am concerned about that, because at the end of the day, police are not trained on how to deal with adults that have special needs and don't understand how they process you know, even how people are talking to them could be different. They're not trained on how to de-escalate so they can take care of my son. I don't want him to have to deal with that. So I am personally invested because I know that I cannot allow another generation in this country to go through the things that we are going through in this day and age. And it stops with us attacking policy, not only federally, because people always want to make these little elections about the president, but about those local elections, because the majority of the things that you're going to do that's going to affect your life is going to come from those local elections. All right, so I done did what I was going to do with the preaching. I want to now teach a little bit of history real quick. I want to tell you all that Black agendas already exist in our diaspora. And we have just been withheld that information because the schools do not teach it to us, okay? They don't teach it to us. And I already told y'all what I do. I come into school districts to try to add that, you know, lens and add that layer of making sure that, you know, our history is, in fact, everybody's history and everybody know. But they withhold our own history from us. And so I definitely like to try to come and talk to you all from a historical lens anytime that I can, because that's my expertise. And also to tell you that we really just repeating some stuff that people had already went through, okay? So let's talk about what's being repeated right now. We have several Black agendas. They all usually have the purpose to dismantle white supremacy within this country and within the systems that govern us. Because as we know, we were not at the table when they decided to write the Constitution. We were not at the table when they wrote most of these laws. And so because of that, we do not have equal access, and therefore we are punished by these laws very disproportionately. And so, with that being said, the purpose of these Black agendas have always been to dismantle white supremacy in this country, all right? Now, our ancestors had organizations where they would come across the country together and they would decide what those Black agendas would be. One of the earliest ones that we had was in 1830, and the president was Richard Allen. Most of y'all may know who Richard Allen is. He was the founder of the AME Church. Well, he was the president of this organization for free black men and women. And they would come together and they would come up with agendas. So some of their agendas would include, so we have a big movement to move to Canada. What y'all think about that? And then they would come together from across the country and they would have delegates and delegation members, and they would come together and they would debate whether or not, hey, we probably all need to make a push to Canada because, you know, these laws right here got me messed up or whatever. Like, that's what they would talk about. So we have had this throughout our history. And so the two biggest agendas, Black agendas, that I want to talk to you all about is one that was written by Marcus Garvey, UNIA, in 1920, and the Black agenda that was developed in 1972 by the Gary delegation. I'm going to talk to you about both of those very, very quickly. Now, Marcus Garvey had the UNIA, and in 1920, so as we getting ready to have 100 years, 100 years now, 100 years. Now, Marcus Garvey and his organization came to Madison Square Garden, and they brought 25,000 African Americans, Black people, from all across the African diaspora to come and put together what they called the Declaration of the Negro Peoples of the World. It's essentially a Black agenda, okay? There are, and you can easily find this, and I can put it in the comments, absolutely no issue. He had 54 clauses and 54 things that they asked for within this Black agenda. I have brought out the ones that we basically still having problems with, okay? I'm going to share those with you. But I do want to also tell you that there were a couple of statutes that they put in place that we have never, probably ever heard. The red, black, and green flag that a lot of us are starting to embrace. The red, black, and green flag was called the national flag of African Americans at that meeting. And so they put it in their proclamation that it would be so moved that the colors of the African people would be red, black, and green. Okay. They also adopted a song that all black people would sing, because he had a problem with the NAACP, so he didn't really want to do lift every voice to sing. So he came up with one that sang praises to Ethiopia. And some other things like that, such as when addressing black people, they were called Negro at the time. Instead of that being written with a lowercase n, they put a proclamation that any time that you address the black community, it's with a capital letter. And I need y'all to understand, we still asking for that to this day in media. We still asking for y'all to put a capital B and put some respect on our name. We still asking for that. But Marcus Garvey asked for that in 1920. I just want to point that out. So he had little small things like that. But here are some of the ones that he asked for that are still so freaking relevant that it's probably going to blow your mind. 1920 is when they asked for this. Y'all, it's going to blow your mind. One, they asked for equitable distribution because as a race, we were and have been deprived of equitable distribution. In 1920, they was asking for equity. So what equity looks like is when we know a black community is being affected by COVID, right? We're not going to get the same stuff that Wyoming get because it's less of a problem in Wyoming. It's more of a problem in Detroit. So we need to make sure that Detroit gets more of the supplies. That's what equity means. And so that's what they were asking for. Anytime that we have been disenfranchised in some kind of way, we have to make sure that this country gives us more. They asked to elect representatives from their communities in policy, courts of law, and institutions, such as the police. And then they also asked that justice is not conferred upon African Americans without an African American at the table. Okay, that was asked for in 1920. He also asked that there be no taxation without representation. Do that not sound right to y'all? Why am I paying my taxes and y'all not doing nothing for me and my community? He wanted to make sure that was not and continue to not be a thing. They asked to that blacks all protect themselves and have access to guns in this community. And that is something we still got to ask African Americans to do, especially in this time, because I need y'all to understand that we're in a war right now. We are in a war right now, okay? We got to stop coming to the war with iPhones and recorders. We're going to have to come to the war with a little something else than that. And Marcus Garvey asked the people to protect themselves. He also advocated that African Americans in this country, black people in this country, have double citizenship in Africa because we are of two nations. And therefore, we should be able to easily apply as black people in America to these different countries and to be able to still have dual citizenship in this country as well as in Africa. Now, is that not innovative or not? And he asked for that in 1920. Thank you, Keena. I appreciate that. Exactly. 200 years. All right. They asked that there be specific protests that occur in districts that are segregated, and that any time that segregation showed limitations of political privileges of black people, that is automatically protested by us as a people and therefore brought to those districts to be corrected. Well, guess who is the only person that's really on the floor doing that for us right now, y'all? Eric Holder. Y'all remember Eric Holder? That was Obama boy. He used to be, you know what I'm saying, the USDA, the U.S. District Attorney. I can't remember what his actual title was, but y'all get what I'm saying. He was in charge of all of the district attorneys in this country. And so now he is fighting in Alabama, in Mississippi, in Georgia, and in Florida to sit up here and fight. Okay? He is fighting right now for people to recognize the gerrymandering that's happening in these states, and thus fix those districts. And he's been able to fix some of them. But as long as we don't know where those gerrymandering spots are, we don't know where to press. And so those are the things that we're going to have to definitely ask for. But Marcus Garvey told us to do that in 1920. All right, I'm almost finished here. He wanted any system in education to be protested where blacks were denied the same privileges and advantages as white schools. He wanted any non-black teacher who was found to be teaching a curriculum that blacks are inferior, or that they gave them work that was inferior, they wanted that to be considered an insult. An insult. And we take that as an insult and we treat it as such. He also wanted education to, in every single city, in every single state in this union, to include black history. He asked for that curriculum in 1920. 1920. And I want y'all to know that I have a friend that's a researcher that's working on his PhD right now. And he and I and a couple of us are trying to put some of these African-American centric courses in play. And he found that out of all of these cities and all of these schools and these school districts, only 2 mandate African-American history. 2 in this entire country. And it's not even like a real mandate. It's one of those mandates where, okay, you got to take 4 classes of history, but you can swap out 2 to take African-American history 1, African-American history 2. 2 places in this country, 2 school districts in this country that allow people to take African-American history. It's just unreal. It's unreal. And he asked for that in 1920. And really quickly, he wanted to ban youth prisoners from staying with adults. And he also wanted there to be a protest against the hindrance of free immigration to black people. And I want to point that out because y'all know that's exactly what Trump is doing right now, right? Y'all know that's what Trump is doing. That's exactly what Trump is doing, because he is now making sure that people who have visas that expire, that they're not allowing them to, if they're from Haiti or if they're from the Bahamas or if they're from even Jamaica. I've seen some people from Jamaica going through this right now, and definitely people from Africa, where if your visas, you know, expire, they're not going to extend them. And that has specifically been hitting our people. Also, those travel bans and stuff that Trump didn't put down, where the hell y'all think he put them and placed them at? In African countries. And so they are definitely fighting free immigration here, and we ain't protesting it at all. We're not protesting any of this. And this is what Marcus Garvey put as a black agenda for us in 1920. 1920. We don't even need a new agenda. We kind of just need to tweak some of the wording that he had right here and add a couple of things, right? Well, let me tell you the other one that was a mass movement, and I'm going to wrap this up because I know I've been talking a long time at this point, but I just had to get some things off my chest. In 1972, there was a call to action by Dick Gregory, Amiri Baraka, Jesse Jackson, Coretta Scott King, Dr. Betty Shabazz, Louis Farrakhan, Bobby Seale, Coleman Young. It was a lot. Harry Belafonte was there. James Brown was there. Lena Horne was there. I mean, pretty much all of the black voices in entertainment as well as in activism, they came together and they pressed African Americans to meet them in Gary, Indiana, March the 10th through the 12th, to come and put together a black agenda. And it was actually titled A Black Agenda. Okay? So they ended up with 10,000 people coming from across this country. There was a delegate from each state. There was people that were representative from African places and places of the diaspora, such as Haiti, such as the Bahamas. And they all came to Gary, Indiana, y'all, and put a black agenda together, okay? Now, it wasn't easy because people in Detroit don't have the same problems. Thank you so much, Candy. I appreciate that. Y'all, they came together. So people in Detroit, don't have the same problems as people in Mississippi. They don't have the same problems as people in Denver, Colorado. You feel what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, they had some issues with putting the agenda together for those types of reasons. Because like in Detroit, they dealing with the auto unions. You know what I'm saying? They having problems with the auto labor stuff. Whereas in Denver, that might not be my problem. You get what I mean? And so they were trying to figure out, like, across this country, across our backgrounds, across our political affiliations, what are the things can we drill down to say that as black people, this is what we want? So this is what they came up with. They first stamped that an American system does not work for the masses of black people and that both parties have betrayed them. They put their names as the National Black Assembly, and these are some of the things that they put together. It was a 68-page document. Now, you may say, Keena, where can I find this 68-page document? I want to see what it say. Well, guess what? They took it off the internet because Indiana decided to archive it as a historical document, and so you have to go through their library system to get it. It used to be freely available online, but y'all know that they be trying to keep our information from us. Okay, so let's not even play these games. So let me tell you a few of the things. I can't tell you the whole 68 page, but I can tell you a few of the ones that they asked for back then. They wanted black representation in cities to be proportionate to the black population in that city. So in other words, if we have, you know what I mean, 78% cities such as Detroit, that's 78% black, then their representation should be 78%. You see what I mean? That's what they were asking for, is that it be equal. So in a place like Minneapolis, where we're going through this today, you know, their black population there is like 32% or so. So they would want most of, 32% of their elected officials to be black. They asked for a guaranteed minimum income of $6,500. So if you're not making $6,500, then the government would basically give the rest to help you get that $6,500. So guess who suggested that in the 2020 election debates as a Democrat? Andrew Yang. That's what he was talking about. And when he was sitting up here pushing back to Martin Luther King, saying Martin Luther King asked for this, that is exactly what Martin Luther King was asking for, a guaranteed minimum income. And so you would get some type of amount. If they said, in this case, $6,500 is what people need each month to be able to get by, then the government each month will pay you the rest. It wasn't no breakdown like what welfare looked like, but I ain't even going to talk about how that was put in place to disrupt the black family, child. I ain't even going to bring that up today. I'm just not even going to do it. We can talk about it another day, but y'all, I ain't even going to talk about it. Andrew Yang was trying to put that in place. So he basically stole that from Martin Luther King and the rest of these black people. They also fought for a living wage, okay? They wanted a living wage, and that's something that we still fighting for to this day, okay? This was written almost 50 years ago, and we still asking for the same dang on thing. Now, they wanted a 50% cut in defense because they wanted that money to be used to support education, support the income, the guaranteed minimum income. They wanted that 50% in defense spending to be used to support black people specifically. They wanted to end national trade with any country that would bring drugs to our communities. They wanted the country to stop making trade deals with Colombia and places like that that are known to bring drugs into our community. They wanted home ownership support, especially reparations for the redlining that was done in Chicago and other cities. Now, I done said this to y'all many times. The Color of Law. If you haven't read this book to learn about redlining and what this country has done to not only disenfranchise your grandmama, but your mama and possibly you, because it's a generational chain. You need to read this book and understand how they systematically use the laws to do this against us, and that they did it legally. And so until you know how this law was put in place, and some of these laws still are in place, we need to know what these laws are. We're going to do a book study of this starting on July 14th. So you got a little bit of time to get your books and start to read. But we're definitely going to study this book starting July 14th. We're going to have some city planners that's going to help us get through this and answer some questions that you may have. But we are going to make sure that we have a response to this. Because as most of y'all know, reparations conversations in Chicago started with Ta-Nehisi Coates coming out and saying redlining is the reason we need reparations up in here. Because they boxed us out of abilities to build equity and capital through our homes. They did that, and that is the reason why we need reparations today. And so they were able to get that in Chicago, but we need to get it across this country, and we need to know where we need to get it from. And so if you want to know more about the reparations movements that he's getting ready to put in place, I need you to read that book. And you can read it with us starting July 14th. I also want to tell you the two other things. That they wanted legislation that affected their community specifically. So once we get that representation of Black people in our elected roles, they wanted legislation then specifically for those areas, and that they would get special permission to be able to put specific things in place for Black people. So that was something that they really pushed. And then also they wanted to push for against all health inequities by attacking and completing data to understand the why, to understand the root causes of why we're being affected. Wouldn't that have helped us in COVID if they had gotten this done in 1972, 50 years ago? And here we are in 2020, still fighting the same exact stuff. From Marcus Garvey's in 1920 to the 1972 Black agenda. We are fighting the same exact things. We ain't got to start from scratch. We got a Black agenda. We got several Black agendas. We just need to pick a couple, put them together, wordsmith them, and get to fighting. That's what needs to happen at this point. And so I just wanted to put that out there for y'all, for you to know what they were asking for, okay? They asking for the same stuff we need today. And that's because the laws have not been changed. And when we actually attack the laws and we actually make sure that we dismantle white supremacy within those laws, we are then going to start changing things for our family, y'all. Period. So let me talk about what the next steps need to be, because now I'm tired, y'all. I've been talking a long time and I'm tired. But let me tell you what we need to do. We need to get our education together. You're welcome, David. You're welcome, David. Now, let me tell you something. We need to get our laws together. We need to learn the laws. We need to learn the data of the cities we live in. Now, we have all that information and we can push that out to you. But what I need y'all to understand is that we got to get our money together. Now, there are too many opportunities to get your credit in order today. There are opportunities for you to get your, college loans in check before we actually start pushing these people the way we need to get, college for all and, anything else that we need that shows to be disenfranchised. But now's the time for you to learn about how credit works. Now is the time, and good and bad, because people just don't even know how to use a credit card, and the point of it to boost your score. You need to learn about that. You need to make sure that you understand the importance of home ownership and how you do it without having ridiculous payments because of your credit. You need to understand what credit is supposed to do for you, because credit runs this country, y'all. Runs this country like you would never even believe in your life. And that is what we need to educate ourselves on. How do white people make their money long? They make their money long through inheritance 45% of the time, which means that you need to make sure that you get your houses in order. Do you have all of your insurance policies together? Is your family going to have to get on GoFundMe to have to bury you? You can take care of that today. There are some ways that you can work that out with your family. Get on the horn and talk about it, y'all. And make sure that you meet with people who know this information and can guide you in the right direction. Our person here and now is Corey Bill. And we can put you in contact with him so he can start helping you get your houses in order. Because we got to build inheritance for our children at this point. We must. Like it's not even a motherfucking game no more. I need y'all to understand. Today, get your inheritance for your children together. Today. Because you see how quickly death is creeping up in our communities right now. It can affect anybody. I lost so many young friends in these last 2 months. I can't even begin to tell you the pain that I'm going through. But all I wonder is, dang, is they kids set up? We need to know. We need to know. Get your houses in order and get your money in order and learn stocks, y'all. That's the other way. They sit up here and make money for them. Well, do you know how to make your money make money for you? Because it's not in the savings account, baby. It's not in the savings account. It's not in the savings account. It's not at the check cashing stores either. We got to make sure we understand how our money can make money for us and get long. Okay? Get real long money. For real. Talk to some of these people who are trying to do some financial literacy and education out here, y'all. They're easy to find. And if you need us to give you some type of directory on people that we can lead you to talk about that, then let's do it. But we got to have our money at the table, because money at the table is what is going to help us get to the table. And I'm not even saying that I want to sit at the table and eat at that motherfucker. I really just want them to understand what time it is. That's it. And so that's what we got to work towards. The last thing that I'm going to ask for y'all to do in this quarantine is self-care. Self-care. Right now. Self-care. Making sure that you're taking time for yourself to learn more about yourself. Okay? I have given on this Now page some access to podcasts that specifically speak to Black mental health. Look that up. On Saturday, we're going to drop books that speak on different topics of mental health. We're going to talk about, we have already posted a couple of things where you can find virtual therapists, Black therapists in your area. So look up therapy for Black girls. We have the link on our page here, and you can actually get virtual therapy. We're going to also put some information out this weekend about play therapy for your children and making sure that you are able to use play therapy as a way to kind of support your children, your young children through this. So we're going to talk more about that. We're going to also have author and podcast host Kristen Denise. She's going to come on here tomorrow, and we're going to start giving you some tools and some tips and some strategies that you can use at your house so that you, one, can support yourself, but then support the people that you care for. She also has a workbook that you'll be able to get and start to do some of these, practices on your own during this time. And then finally, we're going to have a panel on Sunday with several therapists where you'll be able to ask specific questions about marriage, about relationships, about how to manage family, and even aspects of education. And at some point, we're going to address education, y'all. We got to address it because our kids, the inequities our kids are getting ready to face in education, y'all, is not even a game. And y'all thought it was bad before. But once they have gone 6 to 9 months not in school, oh, that's about to affect some things, y'all. So we definitely going to get on the horn and talk to y'all about that. So I just wanted to say that we have the tools that we need to get what we need in this 2020 election and beyond. And I just wanted you to know what tools existed, what our ancestors have done, and what already exists for us to be able to get to the table, build us a Black agenda, and get to work, okay? And if you need to be a part of an organization that's teaching this information, that you want more information on the things that I talked about today, economic empowerment, political engagement, police brutality, gerrymandering, redlining, any of those different things that you want to know more about, now is the place for you, because that is exactly what we are getting ready to attack in this upcoming June, July, August, as we prepare to shut the election down in 2020. And what I mean by shut it down is making sure that we are getting our numbers up for voter registration. What I mean by that is that we are making sure that Biden know what we need from him, since we made sure that we walked that nomination straight to his pocket, okay? We are the reason why he is in the seat that he's in. So he gonna pay the people what he owe. And he owe us specific legislation. So we're gonna shut this thing down. We're gonna make sure he understands that we need some things. We're going to support you, and we're going to do what we need to do, but we need a couple of things. And here's our list of things that we need. And when we go down the ballot to our specific homes where we live right now, we know what to ask our local politicians as well. We're getting ready to educate all that, and we're getting ready to empower you to feel like you have a voice, because we can't have another Minneapolis. We cannot. At some point, the buck got to stop. And is it going to stop with you, or are you going to let the times just keep rolling and keep repeating, and you going to keep scrolling? What you going to do? That's the question I want you to ask yourself. And if you have any questions for me, you can holler at me anytime. I'm here at now. And you can also reach me on my page, which is Keena Patrice, Keena Patrice. Thank you so much. I don't know how much time I took. I asked y'all to give me as much time as I needed. But anything that you need, any questions that you have, definitely put them in the comments. And join now. Join us. Because we are really building our movement and we getting ready to get going. All right? Thank you so much, William. I appreciate you. Yes, it's time to review the agenda. I know that's right. All right, y'all. Good night. I got to go back to work. Hey, Vincent. Hey.